All right, guys, welcome to the video. In this one, I'm going to show you guys the failed attempt to go to Idaho. The first round did not work out so good. Had some issues, had to come back home, limp the airplane home and fix it. It's a really strange issue they had. It's very rare, and I'll show you what I did to fix it and make sure it won't ever happen again. Just kind of a freak thing. It's happened to a few Rotax engines, but it's not common, and it was just bad timing mainly to have it happen when it did. So I want to show you guys the failed attempt. But good news, ultimately did make it up there, had a really good trip, and in fact I put together a little intro that I'm going to use in this whole video series, because there'll probably be 2-3 videos after this showcasing the adventure. There's a lot to go through. It's going to take me a little bit to get that done, but anyway, I'm going to roll the new intro for this series, and we'll get into it and show you guys what happened here. There's some cool cliffs up here. Pretty good spot to stop for a second. Yeah. Nice view, but I'll go ahead and move on, I think. Got a long ways to go. Felt good just for 30 seconds to get out. Well, things are not going as planned here. Not going well. I'm broke down in Big Piney, Wyoming, and I stopped for fuel, and I see oil dripping off the motor, and it's just covered in oil underneath. You can see, and it's just running out everywhere. What's weird is I can't actually figure out where it's coming from. It looks like the rear main seal, the crank seal in the back. I ran it on the ground, but I didn't run it hard, and I didn't see any actually leaking out. It could be I gotta build some actual crankcase pressure by putting a load under it, and then it's blown it out. I lost approximately a quart in an hour. I stopped to take a whiz on that hill, and it wasn't leaking there as I looked at it. I glanced, but I think I would have seen it. Oil pressure was good, didn't hurt anything. I still got plenty of oil in it. It's just down, obviously, but this is a big ass problem, and could be worse. It could be at Moose Creek where I was headed. That would be worse. Or it could have run out of oil in the air, and that would be way worse. So I'm trying to be positive and thankful of those things, but I'm not very thrilled just with everything that's been going on with the mold stuff and all that kind of thing. I really needed to get away and have a you know, a decent time would have been really, really nice. So I'm really bummed that this is happening. And at the beginning of the trip, you know, at least if it could do it like on Big Piney on the way home, you know, that'd be a little better. Okay, so after that, I didn't film too much more stuff because I had to get after trying to deal with this problem. Topped off the oil there, limped it over to Pinedale, which is really close by. And because after running on the ground, I realized that, you know, at a lighter load, I'm not losing a lot of oil, which makes sense. As you know, create a higher load, make more power, you're going to make more crankcase pressure. It's pushing oil out faster. So just limped it over to that other airport real easy. I had friends over there. Big thanks to Nathan and Bill. Those guys were awesome, man. They just jumped right in to help me. They cleared out some room in a hangar. I had hangar space that night, so I was able to work on it. Went over there, bought some oil from them, so I'd have extra oil. And also thanks to my buddy Matt. You guys have seen him before. He's got that S21 with a 915. He rerouted. He was on his way to Idaho to meet up with me. He rerouted to where I was and then stayed the night to give me a hand working on it. So that night we pulled the oil return line off. We pulled the breather apart, you know, checked as many lines and things as we could, looking for a restriction, because if there was a restriction in the oil return part of the system, it could create excessive crankcase pressure. Of course, we found nothing. Everything was spotless and clean. But we had to check just to make sure. So the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, you know, I think that seal just worked its way out. It's been leaking ever since I put that engine in. Wasn't bad, but it was just drizzling a little bit back there. And I think there was just something not quite right. So I did some flying at the airport the next day again to kind of confirm that we're not using a lot of oil if I run it easy. Looked like if I run it easy, I'm staying under Rotax's actual, like recommended limit for oil usage. So anyway, I loaded up and said, all this off-airport stuff I do all the time will come into play here because I'm just going to land every so often on the way home. Took the long non-mountain route home and just flew it very gently, which was nice. It was burning like 4 gallons an hour, doing like 85 miles an hour, indicating probably about 85, And then I stopped 30 minutes, 60 minutes, an hour and a half, and then another hour and a half I was home. So, and it didn't use that much. I put a little bit in it one time on the way home, ended up actually overfilling it when I did it, and so it wasn't too bad. Still leaking, obviously still a problem, but far less bad, under light throttle. So anyway, on the way home, I ordered the seal. Ordered it from Leading Edge Airfoils, picked next day air, and even left a note in the order comments that, yeah, I did that on purpose. I got a down airplane. I need this ASAP. I don't care what it costs. Send it overnight. They didn't contact me. They just sent it second day. Really, really upset me. So wasted a day there. But anyway, this was Sunday. I made it home. Monday, I pulled the engine. And then on Tuesday, I was waiting because the seal didn't come until the next afternoon on Wednesday. But I went ahead and did some mods to kind of help make sure this wouldn't happen again. So let me show you guys what went into taking it apart, fixing it, modifying it to make it better, and so on and so forth, to get back in the air to head back to Idaho as fast as possible. I did the leak down to make sure there wasn't like some cylinder that's way down on compression and got a ton of blow by or something like that. That's not an issue. So now it's like, okay, just double check where the leak's coming from and then go ahead and tear it apart. That's the plan. Oh, and I forgot to mention I bore scoped it too. And I, everything looks the same. I bore scoped 3 out of the 4 cylinders and, they all look the same. Cross hatching looks good. Everything looks normal. And it's got that side camera on it too, so you can see the valves. So that's kind of cool. Well, there goes the old man. And he just got done helping me with something that's pretty cool. Leave it to Dad to think up some cool stuff. So I'm getting ready to pull the engine, okay? And I don't really have like an engine hoist that'll get high enough, being tail dragger, that engine's like 6 feet in the air and all that. And so I'm talking to him about it. I'm like, we got to rig something up. And he's like, oh, I got an idea. And he goes down and whips this up this morning. He just welded me up some brackets and we put, so we braced the board up there. And then we put up these brackets and then put this heavy duty pipe on there. And then it's got obviously a roller deal so you can move the engine side to side. And then the airplane can move forward and aft this way. So you got, you can move, essentially you can move the engine around if you need to. I'm going to try to just barely pull it off and turn it, angle it a little bit to get into the back. But anyway, I was doing pull-ups on this earlier and bouncing on it as hard as I could. And he said it, nothing even moved at all, just, barely wiggles. Okay, so I'll give you guys a little update. Got the seal out. It had backed out and was rubbing on the flywheel, and it's been rubbing for a while, it looked like. And here's what's weird. This motor has leaked oil out of that since I got it. And it wasn't bad. I mean, I would go 25 hours oil change without adding oil. So it wasn't like it was a bad leak. I'm trying to figure out what happened, because I've checked everything possible. Pulled the banjo, checked all the oil lines, checked the breather, taken the oil tank apart, looked at every single thing on that part of it. There's no restrictions. Everything's good. I have oversized lines. In fact, I'm going to modify the top of the tank and make the breather a -8, because this is just an empty bottle. It's just perfectly open inside. It was my idea of like a wannabe catch can. And the stock stuff is tiny from there down. I put a -6 hose on it, which is actually bigger than the factory stuff, and then an 8 going out the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to make the whole thing an 8 while I've got it apart. I might as well, just so it can breathe a little easier. I did it to my big bore and my S6, and seemed like it only was a good thing. Can't find a reason other than the seal wasn't in all the way, or the seal was defective, or something along those lines, because it definitely had backed out and it popped right out. It wasn't hard to get out. Well, we haven't been at the shop in a while, so I guess that's good. We could do some stuff down here, but I had made this little catch can thing. It's just open, but it helps to catch, you slow down the airflow, and sometimes you get a little separation of air and oil. This thing doesn't blow much out the breather anyway, so it's not a big deal. But I'd kind of like to reuse this if possible. So what I'm going to do is I built this up a fair amount when I welded it. So I'm going to cut it off right the tip of my fingernail there, basically. And then I can drill and tap this, and there should be enough material for that big fitting to go in here, I hope. Okay, there's the first hole. I did a 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to step up to this 9/16. But yeah, pretty good amount of material you can see in there. It's pretty thick. That's going to get a little bit less because it's going to be a little wider, but I think that'll be plenty to thread this in. There's no real load. All right, threads came out good. Threads way down in there. Just going to clean it up a little bit and call it good. But yeah, that'll work. All right, so we got all these little parts and pieces made. This is kind of cool. I just found this piece. Those notches were already in it, that we didn't put those in there on purpose, but it doesn't hurt anything. And what that does, it fits. It's just a little bit smaller than the seal. This fits down in there. There's actually a lip where that washer fits right down in there. And now we could drive that seal back in there nice and smoothly and uniformly instead of beating it in with a hammer. And then I got this done. But yeah, it's a big fitting. That's a -8 from what's the factory one is like actually quite a bit smaller than a -6. So it's got it. I bet you that thing is effectively 3 times as big flow wise, maybe more, and all that. And then of course this is done. So all the pieces are there, just waiting on parts. But that will relieve any unnecessary back pressure in the system, I would say. Not that I think there is any excessive back pressure. I can't see any signs of it, really. I don't think that seal was in there right, or something was wrong with it, and it had been leaking and working its way out. Okay, so we just got it all started here, and we're starting to drive it in, but it looks like it's going to go in nice and uniformly, so that's good. All right, well, there it is. It's in there, and yeah, looks good. I guess I'm going to move on here. All right, just working away, getting ready to put it back on the mounts. The oil can back together, positioned slightly better. Man, it's always so tight with some of these fittings and stuff around the mount, but I think I've improved on it just a little bit, so that's good. But anyway, go ahead and stick it back on and yeah, keep working here. Yeah, buddy. That was a lot of work for one day. The seal didn't show up till noon. That's when I got started. It's 8 o'clock now. So got the seal in, got the motor back in, got everything hooked up, fought through a bunch of stupid little issues of stuff just being ornery. But it's running, prime the oil system. Tonight I'm just gonna do a nice easy ground run, get some temperature in it, and call it good. All right, next morning, it's warming up, and gonna go really test fly it real good and thorough before I get too excited and say that it's fixed and head to Idaho. So yeah, so we'll see. All right, so I went out and flew it that next day, put an hour and a half maybe on it, did a lot of takeoffs and stuff, and everything was good. It's still weeping a little bit of oil out of the back, but it's better than it's ever been. So it's an improvement overall, and obviously fixing the major issue was the goal, and we got that done. So after checking everything over real thoroughly again, went ahead and cowled it up, loaded it up, and took off the next day and headed back to Idaho. You know, this problem put a damper on the trip because no matter what you do, you're second guessing some of the work that was done. I wouldn't say I was in a hurry, but it was a lot of work in a couple of days. And so, you know, you're flying up over pretty unforgiving terrain thinking, did I tighten those engine mount bolts? You know, and I mean, of course I did, but there was some of that going on, and that just takes away from a little bit of the fun. I mean, you never trust them fully, but you know, after you've worked on it, of course, you know, I don't really want to be venturing off a long way from home. So that was a little unfortunate. Plane did great. You know, the trip went well. And so, you know, everything's good. Filmed a lot. It was a good adventure, you guys. 1,200 gigabytes of footage after cutting out a lot of the garbage. So there's a lot to go through. It's going to take me a while. And I'm guessing there might be like 3 videos. I'll probably break it up into 3 parts. So stay tuned for that. I'm glad I did push through, get all that work done, and go on the trip. It ended up being worth it. So that's the good news there, even though it started out kind of sucky. Also, I don't want this video to be about blame. Yeah, you know, it's an Edge engine and Edge built it and all that, but I sent them the stator housing because we reused that, and I can't remember if I put that seal in there or how that went. It's been a number of years ago, so it may have very well been me, or like I say, there may have been something wrong with the seal, the way it was split around the outside edge. But either way, that was not the point of this video. It's an unfortunate thing that happened, and a weird thing that happened, but it isn't necessarily their fault or anything like that. So I just wanted to point that out. But I do want to give a thanks to my folks. My folks really jumped in to help me with this whole thing. You know, Dad building that overhead deal so we could pick up the engine, and you know, he whipped up that little driver that we could drive the seal in nicely, and just things like that. And Mom was feeding me left and right, you know, down there at the hangar, so I could just keep putting in the hours and taking care of everything else around the, you know, they live close by, so, you know, she was around and helping me out at home, getting ready to go back on the trip. So big thanks to them. That was a huge part of being able to make that trip. Anyway, thank you, Patreons. Appreciate you guys supporting me, especially with not, you know, putting out a lot of content, which I explained in the last video, but either way. But I think this next couple of videos should be pretty good. And everybody else, appreciate if you'd give me a thumbs up, a subscribe if you have not, all that good stuff. And yeah, you guys know the deal. We'll see you on the next one.